Hey guys, welcome to another talk. The title of this class, Flirting with Disaster. This is the first class in a series of classes talking about the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, stay tuned. They're coming up, these classes. Today's class, I will be talking about the first Noble Truth, which is the truth of dukkha, Pali word, which translates as suffering in English. But suffering is a totally inadequate term to describe the true meaning of dukkha. Stay tuned for it. Many years ago, when I was teaching in Europe, I was in England. And in England, where I was offering talks, workshops, retreats, I was introduced to this very affluent Indian, very successful, settled in England many years. And this fellow said to me in our one-on-one session that although his life was full, his heart was not. Although he had everything he desired, everything, there was nothing he really valued. He had bungalows in large estates in 3 countries. He had traveled the world, ate in the finest restaurants, was married to a beautiful woman, and had 2 lovely kids. And yet, he was not happy with his life or with himself. No happiness, regardless of outer success. No happiness. Although he was fairly healthy, in his mid-40s, possibly, or late 40s, although he was fairly healthy, he didn't sleep well at night. And during his waking moments, he was constantly restless, anxious, depressed. So I asked him, I said, hey, friend, what is your definition of success? And he said to me, well, Behram, I used to think that success was being able to do whatever I wanted, with nobody telling me how to do, what to do, when to do. I was my own boss. That was success, being my own boss. And having everything I desired. But today, I no longer believe in that definition of success, because I am my own boss. I have my own business. Nobody tells me what to do. I have achieved everything I desired, but I'm still unhappy. I'm still unhappy, Behram. There must be more to life than having everything. What a revelation. There must be more to life than having everything worldly. Anyway, we chatted, and I was able to convince him to join my 3-day retreat coming up the following weekend. So he agreed. I've never done something like this before, but yeah, I'll give it a shot. On the day of the retreat, Friday morning, students were piling in, and I was showing them to their rooms. And there comes our man in his fancy limo, parks it, comes in, and he says, hi, I'm here. Great. Showed him his room. And then I said to him, listen, everyone has been assigned different tasks to make this retreat work. We don't have servants here. Yeah? Everyone has to do their own little share to get this retreat off the ground. So all the other tasks are taken except the sweeping of the zendo, the meditation room. So why don't you go into the kitchen, grab a broom, and sweep the zendo and arrange the cushions there. He looked at me, tall fellow, looking up at him. Behram, isn't there something else I can do? Said, so sorry, you've come in a little late. All the tasks have been assigned. This is the only task remaining. So just go ahead, grab a broom, sweep the zendo. He stared at me. Sure there's nothing else I can do? No, my friend. So sorry. Do you have a back problem? No, I don't have a back problem. Then come on, I'm busy with other things. Just take care of the zendo, please. And then I scuttled off. The next day, beautiful morning in England. I was having one-on-ones out in the garden. Comes along, beaming. And he tells me, Behram, what happened yesterday and today was absolutely mind-blowing. I said, what happened? He said, well, I come from a princely family, Kashmir. I've never in my entire life stepped into a kitchen, let alone touched a broom. That's what women do. Men don't do that. And you're asking me to sweep the zendo? Anyway, seeing that I was here to learn new things, I decided to give it a shot. And Behram, when I swept that room, I cannot tell you the joy I felt. When I broke through that conditioning that you cannot enter the kitchen, cannot do these menial tasks, I experienced an epiphany. The joy of serving others. Fantastic. This morning I swept the room also with incredible joy. And if you don't mind, I would like to sweep the room again tomorrow. Please go ahead, buddy. Go ahead. Brilliant stuff. This rich fellow, brimming with money, not satisfied, and yet just a simple act of sweeping the room for the benefit of the other participants was more fulfilling than all his wealth. Can you imagine? Yes. The moral of the story, the reason people suffer in this world, all kinds of suffering, is because being spiritually awake is of interest to only a few. The major amount of people on the planet, no interest in being spiritually awake. So when there's no interest in being spiritually awake, it is inevitable that we will flirt with disaster because we are clinging to values that have no bearing on reality. None. Our friend was clinging to values. Material success equates with happiness. No bearing on reality. He had everything and yet nothing. Right? Okay. Material success minus spiritual success is a formula for massive suffering. Wiki. Please understand that all the painful realities we experience, physical, emotional, psychological, social, financial, you name it, all the painful realities we experience, they do not arise from external sources. No. So where do they come from? These painful realities are the inevitable consequence of subscribing to a faulty worldview. And because of this faulty worldview, we engage in faulty actions or misguided actions. And misguided actions equate with suffering. You got that? All the painful realities in the world we experience, the trauma, the violence, the abuse, doesn't arise from outer sources. These are the painful consequences, inevitable painful consequences that come from subscribing to a misguided, misinformed worldview and the misinformed actions that are born from it. Are you aware that subtle grades of depression kill more people on this planet than all the illnesses combined? Cancer, diabetes, you name it. Yeah? Subtle grades of depression kill more people on this planet than all the illnesses combined. Subtle grades. And there is no antidepressant for a depression that is spiritually based, because this depression does not arise from brain dysfunction or some traumatic event. This depression arises from the profound neglect in knowing the true nature of reality. We're too busy doing everything else, but not placing ourselves in alignment with universal laws and processes. That's the folly of the human race, racing after what cannot be achieved. And so, the Buddha, the Blessed One, began his teachings with the Four Noble Truths over 2,500 years ago. The purpose of these truths is to awaken us to our difficult predicament and what causes it and how to be free from it. The Four Noble Truths. Yeah? The first truth tells us that, hey guys, you need to acknowledge the fact that there is massive discomfort in your life, all kinds of discomfort. And this discomfort cannot be denied because it stands in stark contrast to what can be possible. Just as a mountain peak stands out, which cannot be refuted against a clear blue sky. Right there, mountain. Suffering is right there. Look at it. Don't deny it. Don't suppress it. Yeah, first noble truth. The truth of the massive difficulties we experience in life. And the second noble truth is the cause of these difficulties. These difficulties don't come out of the blue. These difficulties arise because we subscribe to faulty desires. Faulty desires that are rooted in spiritual ignorance. We're wanting things that cannot be achieved. Okay? So the galactic forms of suffering, massive suffering on the planet, can all be traced to desiring what can never be achieved. Any examples? I am thirsty. I want to drink water. But if the water is filled with salt, seawater, salty, will my thirst be quenched? No, it only increases. Salt water drinking only increases the thirst, does not quench the thirst. Material success only increases the thirst for more. There is no sense of enough. Like this friend, like this fellow. So much success, beautiful wife, lovely kids, lovely home, money flowing everywhere. No sense of enough, no sense of, okay, I'm happy. No. Material success minus spiritual success is salt water. No matter how much we have, never a sense of enough. Okay? Cannot be achieved. Faulty desires. Another example. Wanting life to give us what it cannot and will not. Any examples? I want to be happy. I want to be successful. I want love. I want joy. I want all the good things in the world. Fine. Fine. You want all these things? Fine. But unless we acquire the appropriate consciousness for these realities to bloom in us, it is not possible. When we are arrogant and selfish and jealous and negative, love and happiness no can do, not the fertile soil for it. Only through the appropriate consciousness do the realities we yearn for can take root in us. So life cannot give us what we desire in the absence of the right conditions for it. And the most important condition is being spiritually awake. Then, joy you cannot even imagine. Okay? A third example of faulty desires resisting what is in favor of what is not. What does that mean? You're stuck in a traffic jam. You're late for your meeting. What happens? Resistance. God. As though getting upset with the traffic is the only option available to us. Is it? We do have the choice to breathe well, to bless the beings around us, to think of the blessings we enjoy. We have the choice to keep our mind focused on positive frequencies. When life does not meet our preferences, our reflex is to get upset about it. Not the best choice, because that's a faulty desire, wanting things to be other than they are. It creates suffering. Yeah? We'll talk about faulty desires in another class. Stay tuned. This is just a brief of the Four Noble Truths, yeah, right now. And then we will focus on the first Noble Truth. The third Noble Truth tells us that, hey guys, you want to be free from suffering, from everything that disturbs you? It's possible. 100% possible. but only when you put in the effort to acquire the right consciousness, then possible. And that right consciousness is called being spiritually awake, not spiritually asleep. Okay? Right. And the fourth noble truth is the truth of the Noble Eightfold Path, which we will be talking to later on. Stay tuned. Yeah? The diligent practice of the Noble Eightfold Path and all the other things that the Buddha talked about is the gateway to paradise. Without the practice, shackled to suffering, not because of people and circumstances, but because we are subscribing to a faulty worldview from which equally faulty actions arise. And these faulty actions equate with the transgressing of natural laws and processes. And transgression equates with, yes, suffering. Clear so far? On the same page? Right. Now tell me, through thought transference, of course, tell me, why are these truths described as noble? The four noble truths, the Noble Eightfold Path. Why noble? Why not just four truths and the Eightfold Path? Why noble? What it means? Well, the reason they're called noble is because when we truly understand them, not intellectually, but experientially, they ennoble us, they transform us, they refine our consciousness to the point of seeing, of experiencing the true nature of reality and the freedom it entails. That's why they're called noble. They ennoble us, they transform us from the level of an average worldling to the level of a fully emancipated saint. That's the power in these truths. They ennoble us, they refine us to the point of being spiritually awake. Okay, next point, next question. Why did the Buddha describe the first noble truth as a feeling? Why not as a concept or a belief instead? Because concepts and beliefs can be refuted, can be challenged. And that is why he began the first noble truth with feelings, an immediate emotional experience. Okay? Why feelings? Why? Why not? Why didn't he start his teachings with the 10 perfections or the importance of being ethically sound or anything else? Why feelings? Why this immediate experience of feelings? Suffering. The first noble truth, the truth of suffering. Three brilliant reasons. Okay, let's take a look. First reason. Contrary to our misguided assumptions, we are not rational beings. We're not rational beings to the extent that knowledge equates with doing, or intellectual understanding equates with modified behavior. No reason and no logic. We are not. No. Yeah? We are not rational beings where knowing equates with doing and intellectual understanding equates with modified behavior. Nope. We are emotional in nature, not rational, highly emotional. Yeah. And it is these emotions, these drives, these desires, these impulses, is these frequencies, not intellect, but emotions, which drive our behavior. And our behavior, in turn, determines the reality we experience, pleasant or unpleasant, depending on the emotions that have fueled it. Yeah? We are creatures of powerful emotions, not reason and logic. Powerful emotions, drives, impulses, desires. It is only when we feel deeply that we act deeply, not otherwise. It's only then that we muster all our resources towards corrective actions. Intellectual understanding doesn't drive us to these things, no? It's only when we feel deeply that we act deeply, not otherwise. So, to modify our behavior for the better, we need to feel deeply. But to feel deeply, we need to close performance gaps. What are performance gaps? These are the gaps between what we know we should be doing and what we actually do. What we know needs doing and what we actually do. Why do these performance gaps arise in the first place? What are they about? So here's the second reason why the Buddha began the first noble truth with feelings. For as long as unresolved issues, traumas, difficulties, pain, resentment, for as long as unresolved issues keep percolating in our consciousness, for that long, for the long as it's there, it creates a firewall towards seeing the necessity of closing these gaps. This firewall then makes us ignore what needs our immediate attention. We ignore these things in favor of other things. Once again, why feelings? The second reason is because we need an emotional wake-up call. Yeah? Not an intellectual speculation, emotional wake-up call to the fact that for as long as unresolved issues are percolating in our consciousness and we keep suppressing them, don't want to face them, they will create a firewall against wanting to close these performance gaps, seeing the necessity of closing these performance gaps. Remember, it's only when we feel deeply that we act deeply, not otherwise. Only when we feel deeply do we act deeply. Think of those people who smoke and drink. Yep, smoking and drinking. And they continue. They know it's not the good thing to do, but they continue. Intellect knowing, but the no doing. Till a major issue arises. And the doctor tells them, hey guys, if you do not stop, you're popping off in 3 months' time. You're going, boys. 3 months. You'll be out. Only when that emotional wake-up call arises do we do something about our situation. Not otherwise. So for as long as we continue to suppress these emotions with all kinds of distractions, busyness, smoking, drinking, drugging, and so forth, we keep suppressing, it turns into a pressure cooker effect. Pressure cooker effect. Do you know what that is? Guess what happens if the nozzle of a pressure cooker is blocked, where the pressure comes out, yeah? And it's on the stove, boiling, but there's no outlet. No outlet. That's what happens. Cancers, ulcers, you name it, all kinds of physical, emotional, psychological illnesses arise from this pressure cooker effect, suppressing what should not be suppressed. That is why we meditate, to release these suppressions, let go of these toxins. That's why we meditate. That's why we practice the Dhamma. Because pressure cooker effect is extremely dangerous. Okay, right. The third reason. Being highly pragmatic, practical. The Buddha did not start the first noble truth or his teachings with concepts or beliefs that could be refuted or challenged. He began with our immediate emotional condition, which he wanted us to recognize. Because only when we recognize it can we move towards positive change. Just recognizing it intellectually is of no use, none. In January 1980, I did the EST seminar, as I've spoken of in other classes. I was in the US, EST seminar, Erhard seminar training. Life transforming. 500 people in the room, suffering from all kinds of difficulties. And when I looked around, suffering everywhere, screaming, shouting, tears. That was my emotional wake-up call. Oh my God, I've also done this to others. I've harmed people and I didn't even realize it. Whoa, I have to do something about this. I have to correct this. I need to be a positive change in the world, helping people to discover their strengths, to get out of their difficulties. I have lived unconsciously for so long. I must do something about it. It was that emotional wake-up call that put me in touch with my calling, and I'm still in touch with my calling. Yeah, just an intellectual understanding that I've hurt others, but never have done it. I had to be in the sea of suffering. I had to be part of that experience to really wake up to what I needed to do with my life. Okay? So we are all familiar with the fact that dissatisfaction and difficulties are a regular feature in our lives. We have to wake up. Yeah. Intellectual understanding cannot move us in the direction of positive change. That is why the Buddha began his teaching with the truth of suffering. Now, let us look at what this means, suffering. The word suffering is inadequate, totally inadequate to describe the truth of dukkha, a Pali word, yeah, in the Pali language in which the Buddha taught. Dukkha is so much more than suffering, because even pleasures can be equated with suffering. Why? Not just painful events, but even pleasant events are steeped in suffering. Why? Well, because of the subtle anxiety about losing that lovely feelings or experiences. There's always this anxiety that is gonna fade away. And it does. So sorry, it fades away. So let us look at the term dukkha. It is describing the state of all conditioned existence or all conditioned phenomena, the world as we know it. Okay, dukkha, not just human reality, the world, the universe as we know it, with this everyday mind. The truth of dukkha. Now, this word dukkha is made up of two words, du and kha. Du translates as a state of incessant activity, movement, incessant unrest, tension, imbalance, agitation. That's what du describes. Constant movement, activity, no rest. Yeah. It is only when we refine our consciousness that we experience this unrest in the mind. Constant wanting, desiring, pushing away, grabbing, no peace in the mind. And because this can be extremely dangerous where there is no break, we are born with a feature called deep sleep. Not REM sleep, because mind is still active, not dream sleep, deep sleep. In deep sleep state, this agitation is put to rest. If it is not put to rest, mind overheating and poof, gone. So we have this beautiful feature inbuilt to stop this constant agitation, tension, imbalance, agitation. Deep sleep prevents someone when prisoners of war or anyone basically is prevented from deep sleep. They go crazy, totally crazy. It is essential for our well-being, deep sleep, peaceful mind. That's why we meditate, so that we can experience this state of calmness during our waking moments instead of this constant agitation. Because that's what keeps us youthful and healthy and efficient in whatever we are doing. Okay? Hi. And ka equates with All conditioned things, all phenomena, everything is empty of intrinsic existence. There's nothing solid anywhere. It's all empty. It's all ephemeral, fleeting, nanosecond fleeting. Yeah. There's nothing local. There's a non-local reality. Everything is just one, non-local. Yeah. Like clouds in the sky, they come and they go. No, you can't catch them. Same with subatomic particles. What we call particles are really non-dimensional realities. No dimension to them. No can catch particles. Only vast fields of possibility. Yeah. So non-local or conditioned implies nothing to hold on to. This is illusion, very big illusion. The grand delusion we all suffer from. Dukkha. Everything is in everything else. No localized entity anywhere. Just think of a video call on your mobile. Instant. From India to the US to Russia to wherever you make a call. Instant, non-local. Yeah. Instant communication. How? Because it's all one. And even that one, woof. So, this is what the Buddha is talking about. We're grasping at things that cannot be grasped. That's what creates the suffering. Yeah, a state of constant agitation. The billionaires who make so much money have power, name, fame, prestige, everything, and they're still thirsty, still wanting something else, more power, more name, more fame. Thirsty. Cannot satisfy thirst. Nothing to hold on to. Nothing. And that is why we have Botox. Aging. I don't like the aging. Yeah. Hair transplants. Don't like losing the hair. So human life is basically a life lived in perpetual turbulence because we're bothered, constantly bothered by something or the other, time and time again. Nothing to hold on to. The happiness we seek, the silken times we are so happy with. But there's also the anxiety. Because when these silken times recede, fade away, the unrest, the anxiety, the fear arises. We have to grab some more. That's this human condition. And therefore, it is important for us to wake up to the fact that there is lots to learn if we want to find that incredible sense of stability we desire. Because that stability is not to be found in the world. That stability is found in a mind that is in tune with the true nature of reality. We cannot change things for the better if we don't recognize the mistakes we constantly engage in. Okay? So now let us look at suffering or dukkha in another way. Okay? Before we look at suffering in its obvious forms, let us look at suffering in its concealed forms, what we don't pay attention to. Yeah, we need to pay attention to this. Suffering in its concealed forms. 4 types. Whatever we consider to be pleasant or pleasurable is inseparable from fear, unrest, anxiety, and all the other members of this nasty flock, negative frequencies. Once more, concealed suffering. Whatever we consider to be pleasant or pleasurable is inseparable from fear, unrest, anxiety, and all the other negative mind states that are right there underneath the surface. Any examples? Birth itself. Lesson. Oh, look at this little baby. How beautiful. Okay. How nice. How yummy. Yes, of course. And there is that subtle anxiety. If the baby gets sick, baby gets hurt, or baby pops off. Subtle anxiety about losing what we desire, what we love, our health, our relationships, our possessions, our silken times. Whatever we consider to be pleasant or pleasurable is inseparable from the fear, unrest, and anxiety which accompanies it. Why? Ephemeral nature of reality. Constant change. Constant change. You cannot hold on to anything. Wake up to this concealed form of suffering. Second, whatever we consider to be pleasant or pleasurable always involves the suffering of others. Any ideas? The home you live in. Think of the people who built your home. Many of them exploited, underpaid, built your home. And you don't even thank them for it. The clothes you wear, the incense you burn, all the things you enjoy. There are people behind these realities. Sweatshops, making clothes, sweatshops. Suffering. I've been to places where they make incense here in India. Low ceilings, child labor. Many of them die by the age of 25, 30 because it's the dust of the incense. Closed quarters, terrible conditions, and then they package it and sell it to you. And you burn the incense and you don't even give a thought as to where it came from. Yeah, tragic. You go on vacation. All the people who serve you on vacation, do they live a happy life? Do they? Check. Yeah. The food you eat. Yummy salad, yummy fish, yummy that. Poor fish popped. The meat, slaughterhouses. Oh, but I'm vegetarian. Really? So what about the rodents that are killed out in the field, the insects that are killed in the field to supply you with your lovely vegetarian meal? What about that? You ever aware the suffering? Whatever we consider to be pleasant or pleasurable always involves the suffering of others. Do you give a thought to these others? Do you bless them? Do you thank them? Nope. Entitlement mentality. Wakey, wakey. Third, whatever we consider to be pleasant or pleasurable creates downstream effects of the unpleasant variety somewhere in the future. Downstream effects, they arise when the good Lord knows when to gift them to you. What's this about? Whatever we consider to be pleasant or pleasurable creates downstream effects of the unpleasant variety somewhere down the line. Your birth. So happy to be young, so happy to be intelligent, so happy to have this, and so happy to have that. But you're popping off, boys. You're popping off. There'll be illness, there'll be aging, and there'll be death. Downstream effects. Same with people you love and cherish. Your spouse, your kids, your parents, your family, extended family, your friends, all going same direction. Birth, if you don't know it, is a terminal illness. It has a term. Okay, expiry date, terminal illness, birth itself. As soon as you're born, you're on your way to the grave. Well, yeah, can't stop it. Ephemeral, cannot stop it. Fourth point. The pleasures we derive from our senses, physical senses, and the mind, the pleasures in the mind. Yeah? The pleasures we derive from our senses cannot offer us lasting satisfaction, lasting fulfillment, lasting joy, and so forth. Cannot. Dukkha, empty, ephemeral, no can hold, insubstantial, no substance there. They come, the pleasures come, and they're going. And they come, and they're going, and you can't cling to them. So sorry. Let's look at this in a little bit closely examined. You enjoy your eyes, you enjoy your sense of sight. Beautiful to have eyes and to be able to see. But have you noticed just how often you have to blink to keep your eyes moistened? Yeah, no blinking creates suffering. Have you noticed how often you have to swallow? Constant unrest, constant agitation, constant imbalance. How often you have to eat? You've just eaten a good meal? Yes. After a few hours, you have to eat again or drink again. Constant imbalance. Think of your postures. How often can you sit in one posture for a few hours without moving? Whether you're standing, sitting, lying down, you need to constantly move. A constant state of agitation. Yeah, you enjoy your postures, you enjoy your body, but it has to be kept in movement all the time. No stillness. In the night, you're sleeping for a while, but hello, in a 24-hour period, you're constantly moving. Think of the things you buy, the clothes. Have you noticed that you wear just 20% of all you think you buy? All those clothes. The rest goes to the Salvation Army or into the storage. Yeah? Nothing satisfies. You achieve this and you want that. You achieve that and you want this. Constant agitation. Whatever we consider to be pleasant or pleasurable through these six senses does not satisfy. Let us look at self-image. How many people really are happy with themselves? This fellow I spoke of in the story, he had everything. He was good looking, he had pretty good health, still dissatisfied with himself, didn't like himself. So many people are like that. Think about marriage. The people we select for our journey through life, ready to divorce after a few years. Think of career choice. The career we thought would make us so happy, I want something else. No peace in the mind, no peace in the life. Without spiritual clarity, no peace. So sorry. So these are the four kinds of concealed suffering which we go through, but we do not pay any attention to them. We are existentially blind to these realities. We need to wake up. So in this class, let us look at just one kind of antidote we can apply. In the next class, we'll be talking about the obvious forms of suffering and the antidote for that. And then we'll be talking about in the next class, the second noble truth, the cause of suffering, and the antidote for that. Okay, so let's look at the antidote for this, what we've talked about today. Lance, Brother Lance, world-class basketball player, was out on the court doing his thing, practicing. And his friend was watching him for a couple of hours, watching him play. I mean, doing his thing. Once Lance finished his practice session, the friend asked him, "Hey, Lance, buddy, why you are a world-class player? Why are you just fumbling around with the basics?" And guess what Lance said to him? Lance flashed this beautiful smile and said, "Buddy, I'm never bored with the basics, because it is the basics that give me the winning edge over everybody else. It's the basics." His friend woke up that day to the importance of basics. What are the basics missing in your life? What are the performance gaps that you're resistant to closing, and which create so much suffering in your life because you're not closing them? Basics. Remember, We are the sum total of the choices we have made. Yeah. And the only way we can make better choices for us to live better is to close these performance gaps, to pay attention to the basics. And what are the basics? It is building and sustaining the right habits that allow us to prosper in this world. Because it is remarkable habits that create remarkable lives. Not mediocre habits. Remarkable habits create remarkable lives. And one remarkable habit we need to subscribe to is to put first things first, to pay attention to what really matters, to stop deferring wisdom, to stop deferring spiritual practice in favor of worldly obligations, pursuits, and pleasures. That's the basics. Close the performance gaps. If you do not educate yourself on what really matters, and you ask life to give you its best treasures, wishful thinking. So unless we enjoy flirting with disaster, it's important to bridge the gap. Important to do first things first. So it is only when an all-out, full-blown commitment weds marriage. Yeah? It's only when an all-out, full-blown commitment weds belief that we can design a remarkable life that is of great value to all. We need to commit to and believe in our ability to live a well-considered life, fully awake, a well-considered life, and then to act accordingly till this way of living becomes joyfully effortless. Otherwise, flirting with disaster. A well-considered life is imperative because it primes our consciousness, refines our consciousness, and protects us from the most troublesome realities that can emerge in our lives, realities we could never even imagine. It primes and protects us from these crazy things that life sends our way when we least expect it to. Here's an example. The Battle of Stalingrad, Russia. The Battle of Stalingrad in World War II, when Germany was invading the city, it was the largest battle in history at the time. Okay. Now the Germans had placed quite a number of tanks, their panzers, death machines. Yeah, they placed quite a number of their tanks as a reserve unit on the outskirts of the city, while there was heavy killing and violence going on in the city. Yeah, these tanks were kept as a reserve in the grasslands outside the city for when they were needed. But then, when they were needed, yeah, in the front lines, a couple of months down the line, a few weeks later, out of the 104 tanks, less than 20 were operable, not working, reserves out in the grasslands. They were desperately needed. But no can do. What happened? The most troublesome events, which we can never even imagine, happened. While those tanks were out in the grasslands, field mice, had nested inside the vehicles and eaten away the insulation to the electrical system, which created a short circuit. Yeah. The Germans had the most sophisticated equipment at the time, and yet there they were, defeated by mice. Defeated by mice. Which tank designer ever envisions mouse protection? Out of the blue, the wildest things can happen. So we can prepare for every risk that we can think of. Yes, we can. Yet life is full of surprises, and it sends us a curveball which we could never even envision. And when we're not spiritually informed or spiritually awake, we're totally clueless as to how to deal with that kind of reality. Yeah? So many lives are destroyed when that curveball comes our way. Something we could never prepare for, never plan for, never even imagine. We don't even have the skills for it unless we are spiritually informed or spiritually awake. A well-considered life is imperative. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, in Mumbai, where I was teaching, when I was not in Europe, I was in Mumbai. There was a school teacher who had this beautiful daughter, and she had also had a son. Intelligent girl. And when she came of age, she went to the US to study. And in the US, she found herself a tiny little apartment to live in close to the campus. But as lo and behold, the good Lord had other plans for her. She died peacefully in her sleep in that apartment because of a gas leak. Gas leak quietly popped. The mother, who had been my student for a couple of years, obviously was grief-stricken. She didn't blame anyone. She went to the US to get her daughter back. Didn't blame anyone, didn't sue anyone for the gas leak, accepted the fact that it was time for her daughter to leave, and she's gone. The grief was there. She felt it, but it didn't destroy her. Yeah, and then she picked up on her life and continued. Then there's a story of this other person that I met in Mumbai. A couple who only had one daughter. The father was an engineer, and the daughter, to please the dad, became an engineer too. And they lived, I think, on the 5th floor, and they bought a flat for her on the 3rd floor in the same building, so they could live close by. Only child, very close. She got married. She graduated with honors. She got married, and she moved into the flat below. Not long after her marriage, She called her mother one day and said, Mama, I'm not feeling well. Can you just come down, please? The mother said, Yes, I'm coming. I'll be right there. By the time the mother went down, our friend had taken off on the space shuttle. Gone. Gone. Why? Who knows why? No illnesses, just gone. These curveballs, these crazy realities arise. And people who are not spiritually awake are traumatized by them. The couple went into a state of incredible depression, which lasted for years. Years. Why? No spiritual education, no spiritual practice, resistance to life for what it is. Yeah? We are flirting with disaster when we're not bridging the performance gaps. We need to perform in tune with life, not in tune with our delusions. Okay? The first noble truth, the truth of dukkha. All conditioned things are empty in nature, cannot be held on to. The more we try to hold on to them, the more we suffer. There's nothing solid. It's changing from nanosecond to nanosecond. Only when we are spiritually awake, or spiritually informed at least, that we can embrace life for what it is and do our best to live in harmony with it. Clear? Okay, stay tuned for more. Hallelujah.